Have you been watching me all this time? Hey, MBB1. It's Chris here, and I am getting in touch with another vlog. I wanted to get in contact with you this week about the assignment, the essay, the Sunset essay deadline is looming, isn't it? It's 8 a.m. this coming Monday, the 23rd of April. Got to have your assignment in by then, unless you've applied for an extension, of course. In fact, extensions are one thing that I wanted to speak with you about today. There is a certain way that you need to apply for an extension, and I might as well show you how to do that now. So you might have thought that you would apply for an extension by emailing myself, or emailing Caitlin, or emailing Simon, or emailing your tutor, but that's not the way it's done. If you do need an extension for your Sunset essay, this is how you do it. I'm just going to put my LMS view into student preview mode so that I can make it more simple for you to see. But let's have a look here. Okay, you know what this is. This is the Mind Brain Behavior 1 LMS page. If you want to apply for an extension on the essay, you just need to come down here to the extensions link. So again, it's not emailing staff, but all extension applications have to go through here. So you click on the link, and then this opens a page that shows you the general information about extensions and the process, what ineligible circumstances are, so the types of things that you can't obtain an extension for, but other things are okay. And then to submit your application, you come down here to this link, click on this link, and it opens up a form that you complete with your personal details, the details of the assignment, how long the extension is that you're asking for, and supporting documentation. You will most likely need to provide some sort of documentation that supports your application and demonstrates that you've got a valid reason for requesting your extension. I hope that's straight. So, speaking about your assignment, this week I caught up with Simon Cropper because I wanted to ask him to speak with you just a little, because my inkling is that many people will be starting to think about their assignments around now, given that it's due on Monday. And for those of you who are yet to work on your assignment, I wanted Simon to speak with you a little more about this idea of just the amount of free rein you've got with the assignment, the amount of flexibility you've got in terms of the way that you could approach the assignment structurally, stylistically. Obviously, there is a core task, and that task is reflected in the marking criteria. My advice to you is that as long as you address the marking criteria, then you are fine. And the marking criteria we can also see on the LMS. Let me find that for us right now. So just bear with me while I find that. Okay, so let's have a look at my computer again. We'll get my espresso out of the way. So this is a habit that I picked up in Italy, by the way. Generally, I'd previously have drunken? Oh my God. I would previously consume a longer coffee, but I've become a fan of espresso. Mamma mia! So let's have a look at these assignment criteria while I'm all hepped up on caffeine. So again, there's the deadline. It's 8 a.m. on Monday. And what are the marking criteria for the assignment? Originality and observation, description, interpretation, style, and originality in terms of the content. So let's work backwards actually and talk about this originality criterion first and what it means. I really hope I'm in shot when I turn this around. So what does the originality criterion mean? The originality criterion is certainly getting at the idea of appropriate paraphrasing, not copying work from other authors. If you do paraphrase somebody else's work, then being sure to acknowledge them through citation and referencing. And if you haven't watched my video on the LMS about avoiding plagiarism, you must do so before you submit this assignment, just so you understand what the rules are, what potential pitfalls are, and how to avoid them. The other thing that originality, I suppose, gets at, and it's very relevant for this assignment, is the idea of original thought and original content that is yours. We want to know, or we want to read and assess your work. So, for example, if you also submitted an assignment that was full of quotes and there was very little original work from you, even though you have quoted in quotation marks and you might have provided a citation, you might also not score well in this area, in that you've essentially regurgitated other people's work and haven't provided enough of your own content. It's very rare that you'd actually quote in work for psychology, and most people don't quote at all in their academic work for psychology. Instead, we paraphrase and we interpret other people's work and provide our own thoughts and reasoning and rationale around evidence and thought that's come before. So, style in the marking criterion, that refers to writing style. Is your writing clear, concise? Is it easy to read? Is it difficult to read? And obviously, if an assignment is very poorly written and it's very difficult to read, it's very difficult to discern what you are intending to say in the assignment for your marker. So you've got to make sure things are as clear as possible. It's always a great idea to ask a friend, not another student in the course, because that might be a conflict of interest and might be difficult. A family member or a friend to say that could read over your work and let you know whether or not what you've written is clear. It's always a good idea. Now I'm going to go back up to the top of the marking criteria. That first criterion there was originality in observation. So are you making unique and original observations in your essay of your experience during the sunset observation? This is how tutors will primarily get a sense of your engagement with the task and your actual engagement in watching the sunset and that process and that journey. Next is your description of your observations. And describing observations is actually a very, very specialist skill, and it's one that Simon wants you to cultivate in this assignment and to rehearse. So here we're talking about the, I suppose, the clarity and the detail that with which you have described your observations in the course of the sunset activity that you did. Now, again, these don't have to be just visual observations that you're describing. They could be auditory, they could be some other sense, they could be internal observations. So, did you notice that your mood changed, for example, or your thoughts went somewhere? That's an observation of an internal event, right? Not an external one. And so the next part, having made unique observations and described them clearly and in detail such that your marker can understand what you are getting at, the next step is the interpretation part. That's the next criterion. And the interpretation part is where you say what this means, or you give a structured account of, and a coherent account of whatever these experiences were, why they might have happened the way they did. For example, you interpret them, as Simon says in his marking primer, either based on the information that you've received in his lectures and so forth about the early stages of the visual processing system. It's a very easy and logical way to go about this assignment. You can absolutely get full marks if you go that way. Or if you wanted to take a more philosophical, a different approach, again, you can take any approach you like to this assignment. You just need to make sure you're doing these things if you want to get the marks. So I suppose to give you some of my experiences in marking this assignment, and believe it or not, I have marked this assignment since 2007. Every year I've been involved with the marking of this assignment in some way. I've had everything from assignments that have included videos of interpretive dance, to assignments that have produced a graphic novel, to lab reports and experimental lab reports where people have set up experiments and conducted them as the sunset has gone down. I've had everything. And then I've just had very straightforward essay-style assignments that have reported on and described observations and provided interpretations of those observations. Anything can work. You've just got to make sure that, again, you're doing those cardinal things. Making it clear that you've got unique observations, you've described them clearly and well, you've interpreted them well and coherently and meaningfully in some way of your choosing, and you've been honest in terms of your writing, you haven't copied other people's writing, the style and the writing is clear. If you've got all of that, then you are well on your way to a great assignment. I think I've waffled enough. Let's hear from Simon.
So, you've got to write about your sunset. You've watched the sunset, you've written down everything that you noticed, and we have given you the freedom to write about it, to describe your experiences and then interpret them however you wish. Now that might seem to you to be, actually it is harder. It's harder because you've got to make a decision about how you're going to do that. And that's explicitly part of the assignment. We're asking you to consider your options, think about what you'd like to do, think about what you're good at, and come to a conclusion, a decision, and stand by it. And we will pretty much support any decision you make. We have had almost every option in the last 12 years, and we will probably get several that we've never even thought of before this year. I suppose the more straightforward, obvious way of doing it is to take a scientific approach and describe your experience in the context of what you know about the visual system and the brain and what's going on. In some ways that's harder because you'll never fit that properly into 1,500 words, or not easily anyway. And given such a large proportion is your observation, then it's actually quite a challenging thing to do. But we frequently, I think, maybe more often than not, get an alternative approach, which is to think of some other way to describe those observations, to not mention rods or cones or anything to do with the visual system necessarily, but to make links between what you saw, what you experienced, and what you know about the outside world in some other way. And that could be a poem, it could be a story, and some of the best ones we've had are stories, short stories, and we will approach those in the way that they are intended from your point of view, so that certainly don't have a preference, and it's not like you're going to get a better marks for one over the other. We want you to actually tap into your personal skills and experiences, and just communicate to us a sense of your understanding of the relationship between what's out there and what's in here. And you can all do that. You're doing it constantly. The more you find out about the discrepancy between those two things, the world outside and your internal experience, the more you sort of do it on a moment by moment basis anyway. So tap into that and you will be absolutely fine.
Excellent.
There's one thing that a couple of people have asked me about the word count in the context of a creative piece, so like a poem. And what we've said is that as long as the poem isn't 1,500 words in its entirety and the tutor is asked to mark that, then the poem does contribute to the word count in the same way as a story would contribute to the word count. But poems are very hard to mark, so bear that in mind. Do not, if you feel like you'd like to include a poem that's fundamentally a creative piece, but essentially feel that as a piece it is not either easy to mark or contributing directly to the assignment, then you can include it, but you can ask for it not to be included in the word count.
So if something's going to be included in the word count, and if it is whatever it is, whatever's in that word count, then and regardless of whichever approach is taken, whether it's a poem or creative story or a lab report or something completely different of a student's choosing, I think you raised a really important point there about it being easy to mark. So is whatever the piece is addressing the marking criteria, do we get a sense that the person's engaged with the task and made some observations, they've thought about what that actually means and how that relates to their experience? They've interpreted. Oh my goodness.
Interpreted. You have interpreted.
Don't interpretate, but try to interpret your observations. And
that's exactly. And you can. So if you you want to do 1,500 words of a written piece, but feel compelled to include something that you're inspired to write because of the sunset, that's fine as well. We just won't include it in the word count, and obviously it won't have won't contribute so much to your mark. It's anything in addition. What it does is it shows the effort you've made, and there is a mark for effort. So that's only look. You can. It's a sense of we can work it out. You can work it out, and if you feel it's not clear what you want, actually put it in. Say what you want. Again, if you do something that's a bit out there, but you just want to contextualize it, you can contextualize it at the header. At the beginning with a couple of sentences. They won't be included in the word count, just to direct your tutor to what you mean to do. It just gives them a chance in the marking and it clarifies things. So, enjoy it. It's actually, you will all do really well. You always do. You always impress us. So
that's true. This is actually, I was speaking with one of my students last night about the Sunset essay and her experience of doing it 4 years ago. And we were talking about it being actually the most enjoyable assignment to mark out of all of the undergraduate assignments.
Yes.
Because it really does give students an opportunity, like no other assignment does, to show their originality and their creativity, and bringing all of that to bear in their interpretation of
it gives you opportunity to think, and we're asking to hear about what you were thinking.
Okay, so last time I checked in with you was from Rome, and I told you that I was going to do some filming at the schizophrenia conference that I went to. It was a conference of the Schizophrenia International Research Society, of which I am a member. The conference was filming its own video and was a little bit sensitive about video being filmed there as well, so I decided not to film at the actual conference, but I am going to catch up with some people that were at the conference, and we're going to talk about the research that they presented at the conference, I'll talk to you about the research I presented at the conference. In fact, if you are ever on the 11th floor, you can drop past my office. Oh, okay, so you can drop past my office anytime, and you'll see that on the door here, there is a couple of posters, or very shrunken down versions of posters that I actually presented at the conference. So if you're ever looking for my office, by the way, that's the number there, 1114. So yes, that's going to come up in a vlog very soon. Very soon in a vlog as well, I'll be speaking with a marine mammal trainer about how they use psychological conditioning principles in their everyday work, working with seals predominantly. And that is because in 2 weeks' time, I'll be lecturing you. Yes, I'm finally going to step into the lecture theatre about learning and conditioning, how it is that you learn to navigate the world as you do. So I think that's it for me this time. Let me look at my list. Is that everything I wanted to tell you? I think it is. I'll be in touch again soon. Good luck for your assignment, and take care. Bye.